to know who's here. Okay, great. Well, it's 10:03 in the West and 1:03 in the East and 8:03 in Israel-Palestine. Welcome, everyone. My name is Ben Linder, and I am here as part of the Israeli Americans for J Street group, but also as a friend of and concerned friend of Masafer Yatta. What's happening there right now is critical for us to keep our eyes on. In the shadow of the events in Gaza, the horrible events in Gaza, the hostages, the horrible events that of the war between Israel and Iran, and the aftermath of that, we cannot take our eye off what is happening in the West Bank. And in so many ways, Masafer Yatta, an area just south of Hebron, which we'll hear about in a few minutes, is the epitome of the occupation and the epitome of the victimization of the weakest people, the people with the least amount of resources by the situation. And so we called together this Zoom today in order to be able to, number one, educate all of us, but number two, figure out what we can do and what we should be doing. And so what I'd like to do is introduce you to our two speakers today. I will play the role of moderator, but with us are two amazing speakers. Yehuda Shaul is the co-director of OFEC, the Israeli Center for Public Affairs. In 2004, Yehuda co-founded an organization called Breaking the Silence, Shovrim Shtika, which many of us, probably most of us, are familiar with, and an organization that has changed the landscape of the Israeli discourse on what's going on in the West Bank and the occupation. He was co-director of Breaking the Silence until 2019. He is one of the most knowledgeable people on the inner workings of the occupation in Area C of the West Bank and in other areas of the West Bank. And I've had the good fortune of sitting on a bus with Yehuda. And I think Yehuda at this point, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have probably shown over 50 or 60 American members of Congress around the West Bank and explained what the occupation is all about. So thank you, Yehuda, and welcome. Thank you for joining us from South Africa, where you are right now. Our second speaker is Eid Suleiman. Eid is another dear friend. He is a community leader, an artist, an activist from a tiny village called El Khair. It's a Bedouin village in Masafer Yatta. Eid has spent decades documenting the occupation through his photography, his video, his art, and his steadfast determination to document non-violently what is happening in the area. And so I really thank both of you for being here, and I think we're very fortunate to have you. Eid is joining us live from El Khair right now. And we're going to start by sharing, I'm going to share my screen and show you some photos and a couple of videos that Eid is going to narrate for us. And so Eid, you need to unmute just so we've got that going. Okay, are you unmuted?
Yes.
Yeah, Eid is unmuted. Thank you, Eid, and I'm going to share my screen, and you just guide me. Oh, I'm sorry. I shared the wrong screen, sorry. Go ahead, Aiden. What did we just look at?
Thank you, dear Ben. We have this first video. It's a demolition home which happened in Masafer Yatta. This video is, we have hundreds of videos showing a lot of homes were demolished in the same way that Israeli forces guarding bulldozers while demolishing Palestinian homes. And we have hundreds of documents like that. And always Israeli government and Israeli civil administration, the office who do the job for demolition and confiscation and declaring closed military zone and so on. This is what Israel do since decades of occupation in the West Bank, especially in Masafer Yatta, in southern part of mountain of Hebrons. And what we saw here in the video, it's a demolition of a big Palestinian house in the southern side of Masafer Yatta. And this family, they lost their home in this spot. By the way, this demolition happened just, I believe, 8 months ago. It's not that long time. Specifically this video. And they move from village to village and demolish here 5 homes in this village, 3 homes in this village, and they go on in a long, convoy of demolition, which take a long day. And ever they stop when they arrive to the house, they ever stop to talk to the Palestinian owner. I mean, the problem, we have lawyers who, representing the cases in the Israeli Supreme Court and the Israeli courts in Jerusalem. But the problem, when the military go outside to the field to demolish, they never stop in the last moment and say, oh, please, we give you some time as a Palestinian to call your lawyer and he can deal and tell us maybe to give you a time to maybe prepare your legal papers. But Israeli army immediately pushed the Palestinian aside, throw his clothes, his food out of the house, and then they demolish it. And he lost it.
Yep. Good. Thank you. Thank you. Let's take a look at a couple of other scenes.
Yeah, this video, which we see now, is the house of Palestinians who live in Susia. By the way, this burned house is burned just 2 days ago, 2 nights ago. This house, which we saw on the screen now, which house of a Palestinian family who live in Susia village. Susia village, by the way, it's a Palestinian village located between the Israeli settlement of Susia and the Israeli archaeological site of Susia. And every time this Palestinian village of Susia and Masafer Yatta, as many villages in the last 2 years, since October 7th and before, it's have attacks every day. Even today, they attack Susia and they throw stones. And this burned house we saw on the screen, it's burned just 2 days ago. And even though there is no fire department to stop the burns and the flames, people try to stop the flames by themselves, and there is a lack of water in Susia, and then you see the flames just take down the whole house. And the family, luckily, they just run with the kids in the last moment. Here, nearby, not far away, which called the Shkara place. It's a place west of the Palestinian village of Susia, and this attack happened in the middle of the last week. Settlers came and they shoot Palestinians in this video. Some people injured seriously and taken to the hospital, and they beaten people also. If you move on with the video, you can show how they beat the people here in this video with the army help and support, by the way. We see
Okay. Okay. I think Eid's audio is fading, so we are gonna keep going, and Eid will be back with us. I want to turn over to Yehuda Shaul. Yehuda, can you please maybe spend a few minutes and give us the background of what is happening right now in Masafer Yatta, a little bit of the history. How did we get here? What is the firing zone area of firing zone 918? And what's critical for people to understand about what in fact is happening?
Hi. Thanks first and foremost for organizing this event, this discussion. I'm going to try maybe to share a screen here to explain a little bit more about what Masafer Yatta is and Fire Zone 918, as you've asked. So what we can see here is basically the map of the West Bank. Basically, in the south of the West Bank. Now I see that I need to kind of like do the zoom out before I share, but I'm going to do it. In the south of the West Bank, the largest Palestinian town is Hebron. And you can see here Hebron at the center of the south of the West Bank. Yatta is the largest suburb south of Hebron, here below. And Masafer Yatta is the southeast corner of the West Bank. Masafer Yatta stands for basically the rural parts of Yatta, okay? So basically the farming, grazing lands of Yatta. That's just to explain the term that we are talking today about. So it's this area. This is Masafer Yatta, the southeast corner of the West Bank. There's dozens of Palestinian communities living here. In this map, all these small brown dots you see are different Palestinian communities. El Khel, where Eid is talking to us from, is right here. El Khel, this tiny brown dot. The settlement of Carmel, this large settlement of Carmel, is built on the lands of Eid's village, on the lands of El Khel. So on this map, the dark blue is the built-up areas of settlements. The dark brown are the Palestinian built-up areas. And because the Palestinian communities in Masafer Yatta are relatively pretty tiny, some of them are very difficult to see on this. But these are basically farmers, shepherds, and Bedouin communities like Eid's community, El Khel, in this area. Now, this has been an area of priority for the Israeli government in terms of the aspiration of the Israeli government, or right after the Six-Day War in 1967. This is part of the well-known Alon Plan from 1967, where Israel wanted the eastern strip. You can see here in the map in blue. Israel wanted the eastern strip of the West Bank to be annexed to Israel for two purposes. Basically, move the Israeli border from the Green Line, which is the line between Israel and the West Bank, so to turn the Jordan River to become the eastern border of Israel. And that's why Israel wanted the eastern strip of the West Bank. And another reason, strategic reason behind this, was the idea of kind of like divide and conquer, prevent the possibility of Palestinian demography in the West Bank linking up to Arab demography in the East. Jordan, Iraq, Saudi, etc. If we go, this is not just in 1967, this is actually an image of the classified master plan that Israel prepared for the West Bank from 1997. Okay, this is after the Oslo agreement, while the official line is that Israel wanted peace, but we didn't have a Palestinian partner. you can actually see what the Israeli aspirations were to basically annex a little bit over 50% of the West Bank, with the eastern strip, you can see here in yellow, the Alon plan still being relevant, and Masafer Yatta is down here at the bottom. And you can see the official, reason that the planners wrote is to separate, here it is, a barrier between the Palestinian population centers in the central mountain ridge and the residents of Jordan. And as we zoom in to Masafer Yatta itself, this area is important because it forms a buffer between the Bedouin population in the South Hebron Hills and the Bedouin population of the Arad and Beersheba valleys. So basically divide and conquer between Palestinian citizens of Israel and Palestinians in the West Bank. So I think what we see here is a very clear contiguity of Israeli aspirations to this land. That's why, by the way, already in December 1972, this area was declared a firing zone. So about 18% of the West Bank, and you can see it here in blue, this is fire zone 918, declared already in December 72. It's basically a training zone for the IDF. And you can see that along the eastern corridor, the Alon plan we spoke about, most of the lands here were declared a firing zone in blue. You see that. And basically the idea is, if it's a training zone for the IDF, for the sake of their safety, Palestinians should not live there. Already in the 80s, we started to see demolitions there. And then October, November 99, interestingly enough, in parallel to negotiations towards Camp David right after, in parallel to negotiations on the final status agreement, October, November 1999, about 700 Palestinians were expelled. Basically, the entire communities in that area were expelled. That led to a major case in the Supreme Court against their expulsion, where in 2012, the Israeli authorities decided to basically divide. Here you can see a zoom in to fire zone 918 and Masafer Yatta, and you can see the Israeli authorities divided to two. The area in yellow is what is called a dry firing zone, where the IDF basically said, we're not going to use live ammunition, so we don't need to expel the Palestinian communities there, while the majority of the territory, it's the red area, where it's a wet firing zone, meaning this is a fire zone where the IDF wants to train with live ammunition, so we need to expel the 8 Palestinian communities that you can see in black their names. What's interesting, you ask yourself why this division was done, and it's very, very clear. You can see the settlements here, here, and here. And it was just probably too much to kind of like just carve out the settlements. So 4 Palestinian villages were saved by the fact that the settlements need to be saved, and the land, despite the fact that there is this very important security necessity to train the IDF here, and that's why we need to expel Palestinians, but this land goes to settlements, so we don't really need to expel them. So what's very, very clear here is that what drives this all is basically settlement interests. And I think for me, that's the bottom line to try to understand how we got to where we are. This is a land that is, again, highly on the kind of like the Israeli and settlement interest agenda. And Israel will try to do whatever it takes and find and make up different excuses to try to expel the population from there. And one of it is the fact that the IDF needs training. And indeed, in May 2022, the Israeli Supreme Court ruled that the 8 communities from the so-called wet fire zone can be expelled. And the only reason I would argue they weren't expelled until now, physically being put on trucks, is because of international pressure and the fact that it doesn't look so good when you put 8 communities together on trucks with people like Eid and other activists on the ground documenting everything. So maybe it's better to do it, quote unquote, the salami technique, which is the constant harassment, demolitions, and the other things that I believe we will get into. And that's why we're having this conversation today.
Yeah, thank you very much, Yehuda. Thanks for setting the stage for us. Eid, can you maybe tell us a little bit about what the connection of your family and yourself to Khair, to the land? How did the Israeli settlements around you come about, the Jewish settlements? And how long your family's been there?
Yeah, basically, my family roots from Negev. We are Bedouins culture people who expelled from Negev in 1948. My grandparents and my father, they arrived here in 1952, and they purchased the land from Yatta. And then after 67, when Israel just occupied the West Bank, in the end of the 70s, they began planning to build settlements in South Hebron Hills and Masafer Yatta, and they began building Carmel settlement nearby my village of Khair. And since then, we have all things going slowly. The troubles began. The home demolition, the stop working demolition began rolling to our homes here, and they began slowly taking lands and confiscated from all sides of the village. And if you look to the map of Khair, you will see Khair is surrounded by Carmel from south side, from the west side, and from the northern side of Khair. And Khair just like in the big ghetto in between the big settlement, which grew up very well in the last few years. And the other thing, and the major issue we have in Khair, as many communities in Masafer Yatta, is the home demolition, which affect us for, I believe, long decade since they began that physically against our homes and our community. They demolish a lot of homes in Khair. We have a lot of demolition orders in our homes and our agriculture properties, also in the personal living homes. And that's mean the Israeli settlers who live nearby, they want the government to expel us out of here. But because we have a private piece of land in the middle of the settlement, in the middle of this cage, in the middle of this siege, they can't expel us out of that. But since October 7th, we have a very difficult time with settlers, because settlers been wearing the IDF uniform, and they were being the soldiers who make our life more miserable along these 2 years of war in between Israel and Gaza. We have in our village were invaded mostly every week, I can say, by these settler rapid response units in the settlements, and Carmel have their own ones. And these settlers made our life hard every week because they thought we are terrorists and they should keep us, awake all the time, day and night. And government do nothing to stop that. Morally, they give settlers more authorities, as you saw in the videos. Settlers nowadays work in Masafer Yatta in general as, I can say, a militia which connected to the IDF. The IDF support them with gears and trucks and cars and guns. And these settlers do their reserve, duty. They do it on Masafer Yatta village, and they made the life of people hell every day. The problem, the Israeli police is useless in the game here, because the police have no more to roll it against settlers. We saw it in the last 3 years and 5 years of violence of settlers, which exploded all over of Masafer Yatta. Israeli police is very weak part of the game. The soldiers do nothing to stop settlers. They give more support. They hear them. The civil administration is also the same. And we have this complex of problems. And nowadays, it's useless to call the police. It's useless to call the army, because the army is settlers. And the real soldiers, in the war, and the law is just like Wild West here in the area of Masafer Yatta, because settlers taking the lead now. They have all authority they have. And since October 7th, Al Khair lost 70% of their grazing area. And even since 2 years, our animals in the barns locked. We feed them inside the barn. And this is include the whole Masafer Yatta village also. I can say 90% of grazing area of Masafer Yatta is lost by settler grazing, by settlers' livestock, which they have thousands of them. They have cows, they have camels, they have sheep, they have goats, and they go all over Masafer Yatta, and they locked every village, and they harassed their agriculture fields, olive trees, figs, and also everything. And it's a policy by the government, because they can't expel these Palestinian communities and put them in the trucks, as you say, but they do a new policy that they bring settlers to graze in the village themselves. And this is what happened since long time. And it's really very bad situation we have here. Settlers never stop. They never been held accountable. They never been taken to the police to investigate them. Always Palestinians should pay the price. Always Palestinians should pay the price to go to the jail or go and travel to Hebron to do a complaint, which really frustrated for Palestinian communities and people to do complaint every day. Even though we do thousands of complaints in the Masafer Yatta in general, but ever police open a case against settlers. And this is really a big issue, and we hope it's changed soon.
Thank you so much, Eid. I want to ask Yehuda, maybe Yehuda, because you're so involved in the political realm, maybe you can help us put in context what Eid was just talking about, which is what's happening on the ground, the harassment, this economic warfare that is being waged by the settlers. And how does that fit into the grander plan of the Israeli government and the conscious plan of the Israeli government to affect the nature of and the structure of the occupation?
So basically, the story, the unique story of Masafer Yatta in terms of being an area where the Israeli interests and the settler interests are so high and so significant and strategic, it's also part of another bigger story, which is the story of Area C, the 60% of the West Bank that under the Oslo Accords is under complete control of Israel. And for the past 15 years, the settlers and the Israeli government are in a campaign of basically cleaning Palestinians from Area C, pushing Palestinians into Area A and B. The 165 disconnected enclaves of Area A and B throughout the West Bank. The way to do it is a combination of many things, from declaring areas of firing zones, so you're not allowed to enter there, to declaring Palestinian communities an archaeological site, to not recognizing Palestinian communities in Area C, not connecting them to infrastructure, running water, roads, electricity, etc., like Al Khair, the village of Eid. Obviously not allowing Palestinians to build, not giving Palestinians building permits in Area C. When Palestinians request building permits, around 98% of the requests are being rejected. To date, a little bit, about, I would say, 18,000 demolition orders were given to Palestinians who build illegally because they don't get building permits, and about 1,000 plus annually of structures are being demolished. You can see here about 450. You see all these red dots. Yeah, these are demolition orders against Palestinians in Fire Zone 918, about 450 of those. So basically, the huge part of the community lives on the fear that at any moment, early in the morning, bulldozers can show up and take down your house. To that, you need to add settler violence. So while the state has been trying to, quote unquote, cleanse Area C from its Palestinian population, about 5-6 years ago, the main torch of expulsion has moved from the state to the settlers. And we've seen a massive growth in the amount of outposts and in settler violence throughout the West Bank. And obviously, October 7 took it to a new height. So if we look at the numbers of settler attacks documented by the UN, 2021, we were talking about an average of 1 attack per day. 2022, that doubles to 2 attacks per day. 2023, up to October 7, it goes up to 3 attacks per day. After October 7, it climbs up, surges to 7 attacks per day, and then goes down and stabilizes at 4 attacks per day, which is more or less until today. Yeah, so you could see really a steady growth and amount of attacks by settlers, and that has led in the past 2 years to the expulsion of about a little bit over 60 communities. This is a level of displacement we haven't seen in the West Bank since the beginning of the occupation in 1967. This is something that is unprecedented. And that's exactly the reality that people in el-Khel and people in other places in Masafer Yatta are facing. Enormous pressure, the accumulation of pressure from all sides, and obviously the complete impunity of settlers. And I think one thing, for many, many years, we've been talking about the impunity of the lack of enforcement on settlers in the West Bank. And we were talking about the reality where settlers come to attack and soldiers stand idly by, not intervening. And I can say from my days in the military and what we've heard for years in Breaking the Silence, it's important for all of you to understand that soldiers standing idly by while settlers attacking Palestinians in front of their eyes is the right thing to do from the military order perspective, yeah? The orders that you get as a soldier is your mission is to protect the settlers, not the Palestinians. So that's the kind of that's the structure in the IDF. So even if you see a settler attacking a Palestinian, while under the law you must protect the Palestinian, the orders you get in the IDF is not to protect them. Then slowly, we started seeing in the last 4 or 5 years, few cases here and there that soldiers would join settlers in attacking Palestinians. And that's to do with specific units, with the sociological changes in the IDF, which we don't have much time to talk about today. But post-October 7, the settlers are the soldiers and the soldiers are the settlers. And that's to do with something very structural in the IDF, which is in a full-scale war, the better equipped and better trained units, which are usually the conscripts, go to the front lines. And in this case, it was Lebanon and Gaza. So who remains in the West Bank? It's reservists. Some of them are regular reservists, but many of them are what are called regional defense battalions. So these are units that are majority, if not fully made of local settlers. So the same guys from the outposts on the lands of el-Khel or the lands of Susia or the lands which 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago would beat up Palestinian residents as civilians, put on uniform, get the guns, become the military. Yeah, so there is no even pretense of a buffer between violent settlers and Palestinians since October 7. And that's why we saw this massive surge in expulsion. And that's where we're talking about today, and a reality where communities are under enormous pressure.
Yeah, yeah. And thank you, Yehuda. And that really points to the urgency of the moment, because the urgency of this moment is that now with the and I'll ask Eid to talk about the destruction of villages. And there are questions in the chat of, number one, do people get compensated? Do Palestinians get money when their land is taken away? And number two, where do they go when their village is destroyed? So Eid, maybe you can talk about a little bit about some of the villages that have been expelled and destroyed, and where do these people go?
First of all, Palestinians never been confiscated by Israeli government. Even they demolish their homes or they stole their land or confiscate their land. It's ever happened in the Israeli government dictionary that they confiscate the Palestinians who been harassed. The second thing, when they expel villages, like Yehuda say in the beginning, the many communities were expelled since October 7th, forcibly by settler violence and army help. These people go to the major cities like Dahriya. We have a big community in South Hebron Hills in Masafer Yatta, which called Zanuta. Zanuta village, people expelled by settler violence, and they go to Dahriya city, which nearby, and they have massive land there, and they never back. The Supreme Court gave a decision in the beginning of this year to these people to back, but settlers stand all the time against their entry to their village back. And settlers destroyed the school also. They destroyed every house were standing in that village. And this is what happened.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you,
So,
Eid.
Ben,
To you, Yehuda.
No, just to kind of like explain a little bit for the sense of urgency also today in Masafer Yatta is that you could basically see that there are kind of like few tracks of expulsion. There was the major attempt to expel Palestinians from the firing zone because you're not allowed to be there. It's a firing zone. And that's where the state got the okay from the Supreme Court to expel 8 communities and hasn't done it yet under our assessment because it doesn't look good and because of international pressure to date. There is all the informal track, which is the constant harassment, the settler violence, the lack of water, lands, etc. And by the way, just to put context there, in the past 5 years, settler violence from outposts have led to prevent access from Palestinians to almost 800,000 dunams, 14% of the entire West Bank. There is, this has been one of the most successful land grab techniques since 67 to today. But then there is the demolitions. And what really happened now in the last 2 weeks is that the military commander has used the war with Iran, the war in Lebanon, the war in Gaza, and basically wrote to the planning committee of the West Bank that he is not going to allow any planning for Palestinian communities in the area. Hence, he requests them to reject any requests by Palestinians for planning. What Palestinians have done is they tried to fight those hundreds of demolition orders I showed you earlier in the aerial photo via suggesting master plans to their communities and requesting building permits with the hope of at least buying time. And what the military commander said, there is a military necessity for training zones. We need this area. I'm not going to allow anything. And the High Planning Committee of the West Bank has ordered all the subcommittees to systematically start reject any request for planning. That means that majority of the structures in Masafer Yatta that were now informally protected by a planning procedure, there was no court order that they couldn't be demolished. But because there were proceedings, they would not necessarily get demolished. That is going to be that decision of the military commander, the High Planning Committee. We fear that we are going to see slowly, if not very fast, all these requests being rejected and more bulldozers will show up, just like what we saw in the last few months in Khalit Adaba, one of the communities that is almost being erased off the map of the face of the earth with massive demolitions of almost the entire community. So we fear that the mass expulsion is going to happen now, accelerate and speed up. We have Trump in the White House. The US is not engaging in stopping this. There is bigger fish to fry for the Europeans and other attention, right? Iran, Gaza, etc. Now is the time for Smotrich and for the Israeli government to accelerate the expulsion of Palestinians from Masafer Yatta. That's our concern, and I will just end with this. There are a few areas in the West Bank who got enormous international attention and were saved by that. Palestinian community of Susia, the fire of the 918, and the Palestinian community of Khan el-Ahmar. These are three locations where there was a lot of international attention in saving those communities. If the communities in Masafer Yatta fall, then no Palestinian in Area C is protected. If the communities that got huge international protection and attention will not be saved in the next 3.5 years while Trump is still in office, and especially in the coming weeks and months, then no Palestinian community in Area C will be protected. This is the demolition of these communities can open the floodgates to clean entire Area C. That's why we are so concerned.
Yeah. And, obviously we are here, we're holding this Zoom in order to now raise the alarm. And we don't have a complete roadmap yet for how to stop this, but we'll talk in the next few minutes about what is possible. So I guess my first question to you, Eid, is how can the people on this call help Khair and the residents right now, given what's happening? And let's start there.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. I believe it's very simple. Our friends who care and visit Khair before and know the situation of Masafer Yatta, they should, I believe, they should talk to their representative in the Congress, in the committees, in their local society, the Kihila community, the church, the mosque, the synagogues. Everyone with his community should raise this case again and again. It's very simple. We are peaceful people. We are non-violent people who want to live in peace, and we want our homes to be still standing. It's a major society here in Khair and in Masafer Yatta, because I'm representing Khair. Khair is an example for Masafer Yatta village and our friends everywhere. The same situation, the same circumstances. Everyone can take this message and talk to his community, to his representative in the government, in the Congress, in their societies, and raise awareness about what occupations planning for these communities in Area C. And if there's no attention, as Yehuda say, the catastrophe will happen. They will expel one community by the others, and they will go to the whole communities and expel them out of Area C. And this is our request and demand from our friends who care about us to talk about it more and more. And we hope something will change, because this is what we have. We need to put a pressure on the governments. We want to put a pressure on the Congress, and we want more center to sign these petitions to stop ethnic cleansing of Masafer Yatta as soon as possible, because Israeli settlers, they have their own plan, and the government also have their own plan, and they have the budgets for that. And it's happening every day, as you just say, day by day and night also. And we hope our friends will take it to the high levels everywhere.
Thank you so much, Eid. Yeah, I think in the chat we put the link to the Masafer Yatta Children's Summer Camp. That is a campaign that's ongoing now, and that we are trying to help Eid and the village of El Khair raise money for. Many of you know that Eid was due to come to the US for a speaking tour to promote this program, but unfortunately was not allowed entry into the United States. And a lot of us have followed that story. I'd like to call on Shula, my good friend and fellow organizer, Shula Gilad, and I'll add her to the screen to talk about some other ideas for action that people can take. And then after you do that, Shula, I'll talk about what J Street is going to hopefully do.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you both, all three of you. And I think I want to lift your voice, Eid, in what you started to say, that the biggest thing is to get awareness going. And here we have a community. We have a community here forming that we can strengthen. And it's true that if we can get to our Congress people and representatives and senators to get them to act a little bit more, that would be great. But let's start with a few simple steps. If each one of us, for example, sends right after this Zoom, sends 5 messages or letters to people that you know, and include one of the articles. I think Vered is going to put links to 3 or 4 articles that were just published about Masafer Yatta in Haaretz 972 and so forth, that can be distributed, or if you feel like it, the recording of this Zoom that will be shared. So choose 5 people, make it a commitment. It's very concrete, it's very quick, and send it to 5 people that you know and say, this is happening, it's a catastrophe. We know that there are a lot of catastrophes happening in the United States and in Gaza and in Israel. And it's not instead, it's just one more thing that's very concrete that can be done. If any of you, I'm sure each one of you has one person that you know that is more prominent, famous, has a bigger voice or bigger following, maybe a media person or an artist of some sort. Send it to them, because when they post it, we have a friend here on the Zoom call today who contacted, she knows personally, the Secretary General of the United Nations. So she sent him the events, including today, and we got a response. This goes on and circulates. So make a very concrete step today. Become a community of support to Masafer Yatta, because as Yehuda said, Masafer Yatta is the gate to Area C, which is 60% of the West Bank, and to the rest of the West Bank afterwards. And it's not only for the people that live there, it's also for the Israelis that are doing what they're doing. And so this is one thing. The other thing is, it's a big one, but Ben and I and many people here on the call have done it. Go to Masafer Yatta. There is nothing that can change more. You can't go to Gaza now, but you could still go to Masafer Yatta. There's protective presence. There are people here on the call who lived there for 3 months, 6 months, and there are people who came to visit for 2 hours, including many members of Congress that Eid and Yehuda and others hosted. They came back and they will tell you, you don't have to tell them, they will tell you it changed their view on how foreign policy of the United States in the issue of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has changed. This is a view of a few hours and some explanations. And it goes unseen in the Israeli society and in the American society, and it's critical. There are some admissions to be made, so Vered, if you can take it. So hopefully that's other. I mean, there are many other ways of like having a salon meeting and explaining. And I want to say here a note. We will be very, very happy to provide you with talking points, with films. We cut half of that 2-minute video short because technical problems, but We have so much material between us that we can help you package it and distribute it. You could start by just using some of the articles that came out this week in the paper. Lastly, on a very small level, but very concrete, he mentioned the camp that they do for the children. I mean, families attempt to have a semi-normal life while all this is going on. And I have beautiful pictures of people, the children, you know, eating with them and talking to them and picking cucumbers and all whatever. They need those special events. And when Eid and Ode were deported, even though they had visas, part of their mission was to collect a little money. So Vered, maybe you can put the link to the contribution, and whatever you do, $15, $20 or more if you can, you know, if a few of us do it and we send it to other people, maybe, you know, 100 kids or 200 kids will have a little bit more of normalcy for this summer. So there's so many more things. And so I say, stay connected. We're very happy to continue to send updates as they come in and keep this community from Masafer Yatta committed to do something. Thank you.
We will, thank you, Shula. Thank you. A lot of people are asking how to keep in touch. So let me cover two things to close. The political angle of what bills, what letters in Congress can be used to influence this. Because of the July 4th holiday that's happening this week, the Congress is in recess. And what we are going to do, many of us on this call are part of J Street. J Street is obviously very, very invested in this region. We bring members of Congress, senators, we have Yehuda and Eid tour them around this area. But now there's a community of 90 members of Congress that have been there. And so we are working hard to mobilize them and to mobilize some sort of voice. There is a voice, even in this Republican void, there is a voice for Democrats. There is a voice for progressives. There is a voice because the Israeli government listens. And so we are going to keep you all updated over the next few weeks. If you've attended this Zoom, we have your email, and we will follow up with you to do that. I want to thank our speakers. I want to thank Yehuda Shaul. I want to thank Eid Suleiman. It is not easy, Eid, to keep your composure and keep your calm and keep shooting video. I also want to put in, by the way, the link, Vered, to No Other Land. If you have not seen the film No Other Land, Eid knows very well the area and the video. And I think, Eid, some of your video is even in the film. Is that right?
Yes.
Yep. Some of Eid's video is in the film. So No Other Land really will tell you the story of that area. Yehuda Shaul, thank you so much for taking time out of your trip in South Africa to be with us. Your expertise in this area is unmatched, and you are known as the guru of what's going on in the Israeli occupation. So thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your Sunday. Thank you, Shula. Thank you, Vered. Thank you, all of Israelis for J Street and all of the support that you have given us. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, dear. Bye-bye.
We will send out the recording and as much of the resources as possible.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.